Good evening. Welcome to Investigator News, and it's discussion with Elly and William tonight with the World War III report. And William, how you doing? How are you and the puppy doing tonight?
Well, Miss Mickey's just woke me up, so we're doing okay. Uh, that's what's going on with her and I, and she's waiting for her gravies.
Ah,
She's ready.
mine.
She's ready. She's ready to have a gravy coma if I give it to her for right now.
Mine likes the gravy milk bones, and the small regular milk bones. So I get like a bunch of the little ones and one or two of the big ones. And she doesn't want me to hand them to her. She wants me to throw them on the floor. And then she runs around like a fool and rolls all over them and plays with them, throws them in the air, and then she eats them. So it takes her an hour or two, but it's cute to watch. So, boy, World War III, and we got a lot of stuff going on. I'm going to get the news out of the way. And those following the Sweet 16 birthday party at a Dadeville, Alabama, um, they have found these are two teens that was charged, and this mass shooting. Um, uh, these two have been charged after basically a big investigation. They kept very quiet, and I'm finding the reason they're being very quiet still is they're still having people come forward. Not only that, they're not going to get too. You're not going to get too much info because these are uh, juveniles. They are going to be charged like adults, but if under the age of 18, they can only release so much info on these juveniles. So even though they're being charged as an adult, now um, what we've heard was during the party, someone had mentioned that someone in the hall had a gun. And now I told you the other day, the DJ said they thought they told someone to leave and they came back. And so a few minutes later, when everybody was on the dance floor, the gun fire rang out. And of course, there was four killed. There's four in critical care, and 32 so far have been injured. So this is going to be a pretty big investigation. And they're asking if you do live in Alabama and you were there or heard anything to get a hold of the local police department. So, um, um, so the Pentagon on Monday, William, this is really something. Uh, they are saying that they're overreaching with this green energy, and it's basically starting to cause national security risk. Um, and they said that the EV loving of president is now gone a little bit too far with these wind generators because they are now falling to needing repairs. And they're putting more and more and more of them up. And they said it is hurting the ecology and the fish, the birds, the no matter where it's at, it's hurting wildlife and the ecosystem. So this comes from the Pentagon. The other thing that really got me from the Pentagon was from the William. This comes from the UFO office, and okay,
They haven't seen Sasquatches, have they?
the chief of UFO office at the Pentagon thinks unidentified aircraft may be alien probes from a mothership. Okay, so this came from the Senate Arms Service Committee, and they will hold an open hearings on these UFOs and these emerging threats and capabilities. Now, just this week, and he said the reason he came out was they have now heard four times where something has tried to send a message. So, and then of course all these other sightings now. Um, so the Pentagon is now thinking that this could be little ships coming from a mothership. William, I don't know. I think this is a lots of really bad propaganda, trying to say, "Hey, look over here. Don't look at what the bad things the Pentagon's doing." I don't know. This
Yeah,
is
it sounds like some bait and switch to me too.
yeah. Now, the other thing, William, that happened, you weren't at the earlier show, but a parking garage collapsed. I did show the video on there, and I don't want to get hit with copyrights on both shows. It might be 2 strikes, and we don't need that here. So I'm not going to show it. And the tree guys are here. They said they're going to come back, but I don't know now. All right, so this deadly parking lot. It's due to they have had the city has told them to fix it. The floors were old. They were unable to withstand the weight of the cars, and so it did crumble. And people in the buildings next to it said it was like an earthquake. So there, where is the mayor and the AG and the senators and even DA Bragg on what's going on with this building? Now they sent in the robots that New York has bought. I call them the creepy robots, but they sent them in, and they can get into spots that a human can't. And not only that, that they have things. Um, they're equipped with heat-seeking um, capabilities, and so what they were doing is,
infrared sensors.
yeah, that's infrared sensors, is what William said, and they were able to go in there and get quite a few people out and find them. And so they're still sending in the robots. And at this point, it's to look for anybody else that could be in a car or under a car or anywhere in this rubble and help them get out. So sad. That is so sad. Um, um, and then the climate change, I did this one earlier about the um, climate change activists are now going after the rice. This feeds 3 to 4 billion people worldwide. And it's due to the methane, William. They say this methane from the crops is causing 10% emissions, and that it needs to be stopped. And now there was a guy from the Rice Association on there, and he was very
And for
concerned.
what kind of missions?
Let me see. Let me go down. Um,
Is it the was it methane?
yes. Um,
So methane
Okay,
is
it says rice to blame for around 10% of global emissions of methane, a gas that over 2 decades traps about 80 times as much heat as carbon dioxide. The scientists say that the world wants to reduce greenhouse emissions. Rice cannot be ignored. Um,
it's a type of carbon dioxide. It's just carbon oxide is what it is.
I don't see it's only 10%. And even the cars, they were saying the cars, we're going to take all the cars away. But
It's
if
10% of
hold on just for a second,
point.
with these cars that they're demanding, no, everybody's freaking out because they're thinking they have to go out and do it now or the next 2 years. No, what they said was the next 10 years. So don't worry about the cars. Now, the rice they want to do within the next 2 years. They want to totally end rice farming. Okay, William, go ahead.
So they want to totally end rice farming based on, so carbon dioxide is 0.04%. That means less than 1%. It's a fourth, or well, let's see, no, it's a little less than a half of 1%. They're willing to shut down the world for carbon dioxide. Now, methane has got to be down probably in the same zone. So based on less than what 1% of all constituents of our atmosphere. Oxygen is 20%, and nitrogen is 2/3. And yet they're screaming about these less than 1% issues. I don't get it.
I don't either. And then we got we look at that, and then we look at the EU, Poland, Hungary, Slovakia, and what's the other one? I want to say the Netherlands. I could be wrong. That they are trying to protect their farms. And not only they have forced them into bottoming out, but a lot of the farms have been taken away for the same thing, emissions and this methane. And what they're doing is they're selling them to China, though. See, I don't like that. And so not only that, but they're only going to do stuff in Ukraine. So they say they could even move. Go ahead.
So they're kicking the farmers off the land in the Netherlands and turning around and selling the farmland to China in the Netherlands to produce whatever China wants, and that's somehow going to reduce methane. How is that even possible, having one owner, a different owner, going to change methane?
Yeah. Yeah. And so this is not only that, but then everything's going to be in the EU. Everybody's looking at Ukraine, but even Ukraine, in order to stick with climate, they're going to have to reduce their farms and their rice, their wheat. And so they're hoping that, so this is why they're doing a lot of these protests over there, is over this and the union. So they can see now. And this is what a lot of the conservative media are saying, that maybe it's just time to stand up to these guys, and we just have to be careful on the protests that we have here, because they'll flip it around on us. We've seen January 6th. Let me get down through this real quick. Nashville school shooter. There's been a lot of leaks of what's going on with this case, and they found 9 manifestos. There wasn't just 1 or 2. Now they have discovered 9, but it's still under investigation, and so they cannot release any of them to the public until their investigation is done. 9 of them, William. He was a little writer.
Think about that.
Yeah.
So who are they going to arrest?
Nobody.
Why can't they tell it? Nobody's going to be arrested. The perpetrator is dead.
That's right.
That's baloney.
Oh, I know. And that's the first thing I thought of is like, oh, well, this guy's in trouble. And then I go, wait a minute, it was a girl, and she shot up the school. So who cares? I mean, they can't take her to court, so why not release it all? So there must be something in those manifestos that they don't want the public or the GOP to see.
Well, they're making silly argument. That must be they're hiding something.
Yeah. And let's see. Let me see if I can get.
If it was the Alabama shooters, I could see it, right? Because they had to bring those guys to court. There's no court that's going to convict a dead person.
Yeah.
What are they going to do? Try Audrey in absentia? What does it matter?
Yep.
Tell the people what's going on.
Yep. China, we're catching them spying, and the spies. We caught 40 of them just in New York alone this week. Now, Australia businessmen allegedly received envelopes of cash for information, including everything that was on the nuclear subs that Australia got. They did catch him, and two suspects, spies, gave Sydney businessmen envelopes of cash for the information about subjects like including the government deal with the United States and Britain to build a fleet of Australian nuclear powered submarines. Uh, so you could see how corruption could happen and how some of these countries are just really corrupt. You know,
So did that money come with a Chinese stamp on it, or was it mailed to him in Australia? Do we know?
well, it said he's accused of accepting money from two suspected Chinese spies. He knew the names, Ken and Evelyn, in exchange for handwritten reports on Australian defense, economic, and um, national security, and arrangements since 2021. While he worked in Shanghai, where he owns a communications and technology consultant business. So that's what he was doing. And then included AUKUS, a partnership among Australia and the United Kingdom and the United States to create an Australian submarine fleet powered by U.S. nuclear technology. That was announced in September. And the prosecutor, Connell McGrath, said that now they're finding out that um, China is trying to get as many spies into the country as they can. Now, oddly enough, William, when I seen that, then early this morning, I seen there are thousands of Chinese lined up to come into this country. It's all men, ages 15 to 30, just like what I've been saying with what's coming over the border as ISIS or MS-13 or Al Qaeda or any of the gangs from these other countries. So,
two things with China is the children tend to take care of the parents. So that's part of what's going on.
It didn't say.
They're going to send their sons first. The other thing is they had the one China policy, and so most of the people in China that had children had males. So that's going to be part of it. And then, of course, the other part is which part are tied to their military.
Yeah. And then the first U.S. Patriot air defense system finally reached Ukraine. And so now they're rushing to put these into place. And, William, I didn't find that article, but there's an article out there about Russia putting like a type of security wall. And it's got trenches, they're full of mines, and he's drawn the line to where Ukrainian can't move over this line. But it's into places like Donbass and Mariupol and a few others, Donetsk, to where it's blocking the Ukrainian army out. And if they cross over, they're in Russia. So, but anyway, so Ukraine said Wednesday they had received the first Patriots, considered one of the most advanced U.S. air defense system in the world. And Kyiv's defense minister informed this on Twitter and was very happy that they finally received them. So here we go. Everybody's building up, William.
Let's give the enemy advanced information. That's just stupid. Should have kept their mouth shut.
Let me see.
Who needs to know that the United States sent the Patriot missiles?
Mm-hmm.
And so the United States is still going to send it. The only ones it's going to affect is their enemy.
Yeah.
They should have kept it quiet.
And the other thing that caught my attention is you don't hear this very often of Italy. Now, the Italian, I think, ambassador, and I think one of the head leaders or president met with China, and it met with the Chinese government. And so now they're calling this um, China Mafia. And China and Jinping is having some of their head military people meet up with the heads of, with Malta and Italy on these head mafia type groups. And China is taking control of just about everything in Italy. And what they're doing is they're everything from drones to robotics to semiconductors. And even an Italian police is letting China police in. And so, a little ironic, China is setting up those police stations because China's regime is also co opting crime in Italy. So, Chinese gangs have been encroaching on Italy since, get this, the 1990s. William, have you heard of this? I found this today, and I was like, what the hey? What the hey? So, they thrive in Italy, and the Chinese communities committing all sorts of crimes such as tax evasion, counterfeiting, organized prostitution, and selling stolen goods. Even according to the Bank of Italy, more officially, it was sent from Italy over to China in over 2.5 billion euros from 2012 to 2021. Do we know how many more boots are on the ground in Ukraine? I only heard 200, Karen, and they're not boots on the ground per se. They are there as teaching tools for the Ukrainian military. William, have you heard of anything on that?
On boots on the ground.
Yeah, Karen said a question.
So
do we know how many more boots are on the ground in Ukraine? I only know of 200.
Yeah, they're doing training and advising, I believe.
So the Bank of China is getting half of what the Italian mafia is letting. They're letting them in. They're training them, and together the mafia and the Chinese mafia are going out and committing these crimes, and they're splitting the the cash or what they're raking in 50-50. And a recent arrest of two Chinese individuals for operating an electronic shop in Florence gives a picture of what it looks like. And they were transferring money through intermediaries authorized by the Bank of Italy. So, I mean, it's true. But William,
our largest military base in Southern Europe is in Aviano, Italy. How does that affect our military base? Number one.
Yeah.
Number two is the Italians got a contract to build our newest generation of frigates. How's the Italian mafia, Italian/Chinese mafia going to affect whether we get good sea power contracts from Italy?
Yeah. And a satellite view with overlay shows that areas are being developed with the new Chinese station under construction on islands in Antarctica as of January 2nd of 2023. So we're going to move away from Italy and go to Antarctica. Now, I know they had it's kind of shared out, split up, and everybody's got their little chunk, but they're saying what they're doing is like the way I heard this now is they are building islands off their portion of what they have, and they're building more and more of a military bases and fortifying.
They're building islands. They're dredging in Antarctica. pristine waters?
Yeah.
How is that good for the environment?
Well, I don't
Have we heard
I
any
don't
big
think they
green party
care.
over that?
I don't think they care. But see, the thing is they're building up it for militarily, and they said if they can get many bases, and the biggest on Antarctica, and get others to join them, the China will be able to take Antarctica within the next 10 to 15 years. So now he's looking at
That's not what I'm
Antarctica.
worried about.
Huh?
What I'm worried about is now Cape Horn and Cape Hope, the southern tips of Africa and the southern tip of
Mm-hmm.
South America will be locked up. What happens if the Suez Canal and the Panama Canal get blocked? Now we don't have any way to get from the Atlantic to the Pacific. This is a really bad idea to let them do that down there.
Let me. I think
It has to be
unless I didn't
stopped.
grab it. Um, um, is that the Strait of Hormuz and Iran and Oman? Is that where we're talking?
Oh no, the Cape of Good Hope
Okay.
and the Cape of, what did I say, Good Hope and the other one.
You mentioned
Anyway,
Panama. So, but now.
Yeah, well, if you block the southern approaches to the oceans, the northern approaches are locked up in ice in Antarctica, in the Arctic. So now you're dependent on the Suez Canal and you're dependent on the Panama Canal because the Chinese will be in striking distance of the two southern capes.
Okay. Now, see what I got here, and I wish my internet would have been working with, and I could have sent it to you. Now, U.S. Navy is selling their first drone boat through the Strait of Hormuz and between Iran and Oman. Now, it did say that um, um, the U.S. Navy, this is a strategic um, exercise, and they say it's critical for waterway globally, not only for where they went. Let's see. Um, the trip saw drones safely pass through the strait, busy waterway. Iran, Oman, and narrowest is just 21 miles wide. A fifth of all oil trade passes through the strait and connects it to the Persian Gulf and Gulf of Oman. And not only that, they said, if with this, they will be able to sail these drones through Panama, able to get through all the straits. So that's pretty much what the story is. And the Iran media didn't acknowledge the drone voyage. They thought it was the United States Navy with a smaller ship, is what the article said. Hmm. Uh-oh, we lost him. You there? Okay, let me try to get him. I think both of us having issues today. Nope, we got a busy signal. Okay, so while we're waiting on him, now the other thing I wanted to bring up. Now, see, we have these drones, though. You see what they're doing? So instead of putting there it is. Are you back?
I think so. I got
Okay.
cut off on the 10.
So, uh, so what they're saying is it fooled Iran and a few down there in Oman, and they really thought that these were regular ships, which is great. So we can do these drones into through these straits, and like Hormuz and Panama and all that, and even around over by India, and not have to put men on it. So,
I think it's a terrible idea putting it in the Straits of Hormuz. Here's why.
really,
They got hold of one of our air drones, and now we've got all these Iranian drones. We shouldn't be handing them any of our technology. I hope we have gunboats nearby.
well, yeah, you're right. Um,
Or
what
their
if they
backwards
don't?
explosive, and so they can self-detonate if anybody bothers them.
Yeah. Well, see, my thing is, um, if we don't use it for that, we can use it for other things because if um, Iran and a few of them actually thought it was a Navy, probably now they know it's a drone, and they're going to go and strike at them. But we might be able to use drones to do some of the patrols, and not have to put men on a ship. Because you remember when? Oh goodness, where was that at? I'm thinking over there
Well,
by
they
Oman and.
grabbed some of our sailors one time, so I can see that that's a good thing. My only concern is they get hold of the technology. So as long as it has a self-destruct mechanism, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, did you remember we had a fleet over there? I think it was the Carl Vincent over in I want to say over by um, Yemen and over in that area, and they had went up in this one little strait. Um, and what it was is they got to where they were cut off under fire. Um, they were shooting missiles over the top of the ships, these two ships, and so they had the rest of the fleet out in the water. Do you remember this? Because a friend of mine's son was on that boat. Um,
Yeah, I heard about it.
and so, yeah, it was for, his dad, it was, he was waiting to hear something. And they eventually moved out. But see, that's what I'm thinking. If we had a ship over there like this drone instead of men on a boat, I'm just trying to save lives, I guess. But yeah, I agree with you because all they would do is they would sink it, they would get it, and they would steal the technology.
Yeah,
Probably rewire it and use it.
if it has a self-destruct mechanism, so it can't get hold of the technology, that's fine. But what's a drone going to do against piracy, or what's a drone going to? You got to have people on the ground. You
Yeah.
have to have ships with people aboard.
Well, more than likely, that's what they would have running this. Is
Now, if they're using those for doing scouting work. That's a great thing for them. That's a good idea.
Yeah. It just
Over the
we're
price of
moving
work.
into the whole drone age. We got the planes, we got the boats, we got the tanks, many things with these drones now. They even have them up on Mars. But William, I think we're moving in a direction that I think we're going to see. It's not going to work unless we have a military to back it up. I agree with you on that because we got to, because otherwise they'll just blow them up.
Right. They unless they can engage and continue to engage and re-engage like humans can do, then what good are they militarily? I guess is what I'm saying. Except for scouting work.
Um, Now, the other thing, let's see, I'm trying to. What was it? I don't know if I grabbed it. Uh,
We have drones underwater as well. I don't know if you remember about that. And if you think about it, the balloon that China sent over us was a type of drone as well because it was gathering information.
yeah. Now, the other thing is moving over to Taiwan. They got 400 anti ship missiles. Um, not only that, but they sent over 2,000 from for the boots on the ground. Karen, if you want to know about boots on the ground, we did send them to Taiwan. And at the same time, then we seen China sending um, a massive amount of military aircraft ships into Taiwan waters as soon as they found out about it. And like I've been telling everybody, they're blocking the strait, and then it's like a game of chicken. Um, William, I
Well,
don't
until
think
a
you were
U.S.
on the
ship
night
comes
I
down
talked
the
about that.
strait, as soon as a U.S. ship comes down the strait, they get out of the way.
Yeah, yeah. They'll play chicken to a point and then they move. Yeah. So um, now the title of the show was Infiltration, and I got to thinking about it, and so I ended up calling William back today, and I said, we gotta. There's um, um, infiltration that's going on in the United States because I've been seeing so many articles now popping up saying that um, with them buying up resources in our country, then it was buying up businesses in our country, then it was establishing themselves in Chinatowns in our country. Then we seen they were buying and donating to colleges, universities, and just starting to take over of the college curriculum. Then we started hearing they were giving millions of dollars to politicians, and then we seen they were buying farms and going to farm on their own. Then they were buying property right next to military installations. And then now, um, uh, today, it was noticed that they're coming over in a massive amount. I got to make sure I get this. Um, um, I don't see the amount. I heard thousands of military age Chinese men heading towards the United States. The thing is they're waiting for something. They're gathering up into the thousands. Um, and so we don't, the State Department, Department of Defense don't know what they're going to do. So, William, this is, I think, a form of infiltration into our country. I don't see, we've always said we don't think they're going to bomb us, but they can infiltrate us. And see, my question to you was infiltration. It just sounds like we've been doing this for many, many years and many wars. And I said, didn't we do that in World War II? And you said, no, 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 it was Vietnam and stuff.
Now,
So I'm going to let you go ahead with it.
During World War II, we did lock up all the Japanese because we were afraid of Japanese infiltrators. So we put them all in, I guess they were a type of concentration camp, but they were just relocation camps. We weren't like putting them to work or abusing them or anything like that. We just took them out of society so that we didn't have to worry about losing intel to the Japanese during the war in the Pacific. Now, some of these people that were relocated actually joined our military and went to the European front. So a lot of them were patriotic. I'm not saying there's anything negative about the Japanese that were here at the time, but they couldn't trust that information would get back to Japan because of people on the United States proper, the lower 48. Now, we knew that there were Japanese in Hawaii, but there's so many of them that there was no place to put any of them. So they just kind of had to live with what was in Hawaii. So what's going to happen if suddenly there's a gunshot between the United States and China? Are we going to have to take all these Chinese people and relocate them into a safe environment so we can maintain our security?
I don't know.
I don't think we know any of this. I don't think we can even guess. But China is a lot more invested in all of our like you said, universities, industry, the whole thing. What happens if we take those people out of those positions? Are we going to be able to maintain? Because a lot of them are good, you know.
Yeah.
Are we going to be able to maintain our military base? I think this is all a big question that Congress should be looking deeply into right now, because they're going to have to make snap decisions
on what they're going to do, because if they're building up, I mean, more than likely they're just going to go through just like the rest of the countries have. But we're talking thousands of military age men, and that's what concerns me. And then I watched from Taiwan. I watched this. It was a conference of four of them that were talking how China has infiltrated the United States using American policies. And so I gave a listen. I gave them a chance to hear what they had to say. And they said, now, William, me and you know that they'll go over and they offer, let's say, Australia or Africa, we're going to come in and we're going to help you. And this is what we want. We're going to be peaceful about it. I've even heard from these people this 12-step program, peace program they're trying to do with Zelensky and Russia.
Which, by the way, makes sense. But if it works, then that'll be a win for China.
Yeah. So once they start getting their people over, whether it's Belt and Road Initiative or it's helping them with a dam or help, they seem to bring the people in, open up businesses, or they'll buy up the resources, and then it's up to the government. And boy, this sounds so familiar. So what they do is they work with the government that is in control, and they say they want to divide the people and split them into quarreling fashions of racism, fighting amongst themselves rather than the common enemy that these comrades, or basically these enemies that have now come into the country. And rather than fight with them or try to get rid of them, they're fighting amongst each other. And they do that and they know from experience that a nation so divided will be weakened, and it could be easily conquered from within. The communists disdain to conceal their views and aims. They openly declare that in their end, when everything can be taken. And a communist will conceal their views and aims to the bigger politicians in these countries, because if they want the possibility of an overthrow of all, not only political, the military, police, and all social conditions. So the most,
including churches.
Yeah, and taking advantage of every rift of interest among churches. They come in and they just slowly start building up. And that's what we've seen here with Clintons. They brought in a bunch of Chinese. And all of a sudden they have businesses. They started, it was like, they started having farms. They were going into the churches. They were in the schools. All of a sudden it just increased here. And no one knew why. And this is the beginning of the 80s, going into the 90s. And then we came back and it's like, wow, we have a lot of Asian people here, especially Chinese. So they do. And they use the money that they have for the military or donations or campaign. We're talking China. That they can take advantage even of the smallest of countries. And that's what we're seeing. The actual number of Communist Party members at the time of the takeover, it doesn't even have to be but 1% of your population. And they can do it. See, I didn't know that. Now, that's something that Lenin even said. So not This doesn't come from Jinping or Mao. This comes from Lenin, even said the same thing. And when you look at, and I know I'm beating a dead horse with this one, every one of these ideas for this, just the beginning of infiltration and getting the people to turn on each other and get in there and start taking over, like what we're seeing and we just talked about, um, comes from the book of Marxists. And so Lenin liked it, Mao liked it, all of them liked it. So, um, so they can trick 99% into surrendering their birthright, or giving themselves up to even a communist takeover. I don't think
1% of the population is the typical size of a strong military.
Yeah.
So if they have 1% in a country, you can imagine the kind of havoc they can wreak. Just having near parity with the military.
Yeah, yeah. And now, after they get them to fight amongst each other, um, it's the whole thing about conquest, and uh, and warning the people that raising your voice or protesting in the streets, all and freedom of speech is all going to go. It's all going to go away. And the other one is um, um, maybe to even start a revolution amongst the people, and then whichever side wins, and then there'll be millions of deaths. So it's almost like what we're seeing now. This came out in 1943 is when they decided they were going to start writing on this, and um, they say the visible signs of a revolution is riots, demonstration, street battles, detachment, and even a buildup of their own revolution army or mercenaries. And we see that, William. We do. We see. We
Well,
see.
look what happened in Cambodia as soon as the communist Khmer Rouge came to power. They took everybody out of the cities. They put them out on the farms. Everybody with glasses or an education were immediately killed. And then they commenced a 5 million persons genocide. So that's the genocide is the backside. What you're talking about is the front side. Wait till they get in power.
Mm-hmm.
Then
Oh
it's
yeah.
going to really become ugly. I mean, it's not about losing your voice to protest. It's about keeping your life.
Yeah. Almost like Karen mentioned, says, uh, I know we were mean to German immigrants in our country, but they're the same as. Did we do the same to Jewish people after World War II internment camps? I don't think we did it. I think we did worse to the Indians or even the Japanese.
So after World War II, the Jewish people wanted to come to the United States, and we blocked them initially from coming because it caused so much turmoil in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But after a period of time, we started letting them come in a few numbers. And so what they did is they went to Palestine, and then when the British allowed it, they created a Jewish state. So in that way, us not allowing them to come all into the United States, the Jewish people ended up with their own state, which is a good thing. It was bad because the Jewish people were in such difficult situations when they couldn't enter the United States, and they're stuck on ships trying to come. So
Yeah.
does that answer it for, was it Karen?
Yeah, it was Karen. And not only that, but we brought over all the German scientists. Now, you know what gets me was we mentioned Japan. Now, when we went to a war with Japan, and I remember this because I was in California, and they had all the housing down towards San Francisco for the Japanese, that they had them all in this camp. And I just remembered, I was so tiny then, though. I just remembered that there was an anti-Asian type of feel to California, and I seen the same when with Cambodia, because when the Cambodians went to California, they were basically i- ignored, and they were treated badly with the Cambodians that came over.
So in like Chinatown, um, not all Asians are equal in those towns.
Mm-mm.
So if you're Japanese, if you're Cambodian, if you're Vietnamese boat people, if you're, you can see how they're xenophobic. They're
Mm-hmm.
not. They're not like we are.
Yeah.
Being that will readily mix. They'll mix if they're forced to. Don't get me wrong, but if they're not forced to, they're not going to, because it's more tribal for them. And I don't know really how to explain it. So if you go to any of the communist Asian countries, there's no, it's not like in Japan or in South Korea where there's people from all over the world that are there.
Mm-hmm.
It's just your kind. And when they come to this country initially, they bring those kinds of prejudices with them. Even if they don't bring the communism, they bring their society with them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like anything else. It takes 100 years for that to break down. It's just like warring parties. It takes 100 years before they can talk to each other. Naturally, you can force them to, but have it just be a course of business or a course of daily life. They're not going to mix.
Yeah. Now, you have mentioned that, uh, and I mentioned, was this an Asia thing? That over there in Indonesia and Asia, they infiltrated a lot uh, during some of the wars back then in the 50s and 60s.
So infiltration has always happened across each other's borders because that's how you get information, right?
Mm-hmm.
What makes communists different is they do it globally.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody infiltrates their neighbors. The Hispanic population infiltrates the United States. The United States goes and creates the maquiladora businesses to the south. Those are all types of infiltration. It's what every country does that's next to each other.
Mm-hmm.
But Mexico doesn't try to go and infiltrate into Burma, for instance.
No.
They're not trying to infiltrate into Ukraine. That's something that it takes a major power or a major ideology. So if that helps you.
Yeah, yeah. And now, um, I truly believe, when we went through Desert Storm 1 and 2, um, we had, when we cleared it through, then we seen the infiltration of ISIS that went in, and everybody was wondering what ISIS was really doing in Iraq because they swept through. What we didn't know is they were infiltrating cities and taking over their governments. And not only that, but they were destroying biblical artifacts in these cities.
Desert Storm, we didn't have infiltration, and that was because we just went in quickly. We did the job and we got out.
Right.
We didn't see infiltration and ISIS and all this really start to happen until after we left Desert Storm.
Right.
Now, what motivated Osama bin Laden is during the liberation of Kuwait, United States brought females into what's considered their holy land, right?
Mm-hmm.
Into Saudi Arabia, the place where Mecca is found, and they didn't have to wear And so towards the end of Desert Storm, as we were leaving, what did they do? They bombed Khobar Towers. That's where ISIS and Al Qaeda all started, was because the United States went in and defended Kuwait. And by the way, we were invited in by the King of Saudi Arabia, but that upset some of the parts of Saudi society.
Yep.
And Osama bin Laden was one of the families. Remember, once you have a king and his family ruling, a part of the family is always warring with another part of the family. And so they didn't like the fact that the Americans were there, and that was the beginning of all this ISIS business.
Well, not only that, but then they went all the way into Syria.
The infiltrations happened during after 9/11, and we ended up with ISIS working its way into
Syria.
For the Saudis, the Al Qaeda working their way into Iraq, as well as
Syria.
The Iranians working their way into Iraq, and then when those congealed together, we ended up with a new burgeoning group called ISIS.
Yeah, and they went all the way into Syria. And now I when I first started watching Syria, it was like we almost had the same thing that's going on today, because we had those that were going after ISIS, and we have many bases up there and still have troops up there. But it was like Russia came in to help, and China came in, Turkey came in, and that's where I found the Turkish Women's Brigade, I think is what it's called, where it's all women. And there's something. Folks, go check out these Turkish women that are military. They're tough. And so when we seen I seen, basically, I could be wrong, where ISIS infiltrated and they started taking over. They started blowing things up, but they kind of were like on the low end of getting military equipment. And when we left, basically they were in heaven. They were like in a free shopping mode, where they went and grabbed everything up.
Well, they grab everything by terror, and if you've got a weak military that's willing to hand over equipment rather than being attacked, guess what they're going to do? And that's often what we see in West Asian states. It's always been that way. They would rather not fight if they don't have to. They would rather give up equipment. They would rather give up things rather than give up land or give up lives.
Yeah. And so when we look at bringing it back to the United States, and it's not just Taiwan, it's Beijing, and it's there's so many people that are, and even Japan, warning us that they have infiltrated the United States, and it's not going to be easy to get rid of them when the time comes, like when it's time to say, no, we need to get China out of here. And all of them said once they get into our military, or they get into like a policing of a city, we're in big trouble, or banks. And so we could see with this administration, and I'm not just going to blame Biden on this, William, because there's too many politicians right now that have been doing business with China for a very long time. And they're letting them come over here. They're letting them swoop in on our resources and our colleges. And now that we're going to have to do some sanctions, or say we're no longer going to do business with China, I think that's when they're going to start putting their foot down. Right now we're saying, no, you can't have the police department. And they're saying, we have every right because we're bringing criminals back to our country. And so they need this. There's always a rhyme and reason for Jinping.
So in the United States, no person from China has the right to compel anybody else from China to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? They don't have a right to intimidate. They don't have a right to make afraid. They don't have a right to compel. And any citizen of the United States, Chinese citizen of the United States, okay, naturalized citizen, has a right to come to to our law enforcement and stop that.
Mm-hmm.
The problem happens is when they're afraid to come to law enforcement. They don't trust the police in the United States because they didn't trust the police in China.
Yeah.
They have to change their mindset that they have to be, no matter what, don't give in to anything that's coming from China, like these police stations or these diplomats or whatever. You cannot give in to them no matter what.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the culture in China is to knuckle under,
mm-hmm.
not to slap back. And until they get ready, that when somebody comes from China trying to compel them to do something that China wants, they're going to have to slap back.
Yeah.
When they get slapped, they're going to have to slap back. Then that's not inherent in them. They comply to survive, and that's got to change because either they're going to be U.S. citizens or they're going to be Chinese citizens, and it's not going to matter about whether they take the oath or not. It's going to matter whether they demand their rights and protect their rights.
Yeah.
We give them the tools, but we can't force them,
mm-hmm.
To protect their rights. They have to at least be willing to report what's going on, and until that happens, we're going to have these Chinese tongs acting for the CCP, running roughshod here in the United States.
Yeah.
We can throw them out, but there's going to be more of them coming
mm-hmm.
in. So we have to do both, throw them out, watch for new ones, but we need the help of the Chinese citizens, U.S. citizens here in the United States. We can't do it all by ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And for our border right now, we have got to do something about it. And watching the hearings, there's a good possibility they might be able to impeach Mayorkas over this. He broke, I think it was 5 different border laws that he should have kept track of. But I think this is the GOP's way of really starting to get scared of what's coming through our borders, and that could infiltrate our country, because we don't know where these people are. And when you look at their, they're supposed to go back a year later and go to court to become citizens. Only 10% of the people are checking in. 10%, as much as the emissions are. I don't know. But only 10%. Where's the rest of them? And then, when my Mayorkas was asked, where's the kids? He didn't even know where the kids were. And they don't know. But I think we are being infiltrated, because Karen's been around a long time with me, and she'll tell you from the beginning. I even put up pictures one time of people from Middle East, people from Mexico, people from South America, and then I put ISIS in these pictures. And I flashed them up on the screen, asked anybody if they could point out the ISIS guys. And everybody was wrong. They picked the wrong ones. They never did pick the ISIS guys. So
Mayorkas' family came to the United States when it was obvious that the communists were taking over. They were going to lose their business opportunities, so they came to the United States. And that's his parents came. But Mayorkas is acting just like if he was pre-communist Cubans.
Yeah.
There was a lot of communists in Cuba.
Mm-hmm.
They were businessmen.
The Cubans are even warning us, William. The Cubans, a Cuban whistleblower from went to the, I think FBI or CIA as a whistleblower, and they didn't pay attention to him. But now, as more things are coming out with the CIA and FBI, this guy from Cuba, and I wish I could remember his name. He worked for the president there, the one that just passed. I want to say El Chapo, but I'm wrong.
No. It was. We know who you're talking about.
Anyway, he worked for him, and this guy was an old guy, and he told Obama during the Obama administration, and then his kids have went on to try to share his documents with Washington, but of course they don't want them, and warning that China had infiltrated and partnered up with man, I wish I could remember his name. And anybody got it in there? Linda, do you know the old president of Cuba? All right, come on, one of you guys that's listening, just throw it in there in the comment.
The Castro brothers.
Yeah. So these guys are saying that they were infiltrated by China, and so was a lot of the islands down there, quietly and secretly, and that they are seeing the same things going on here in our country, that right before the fall of these countries, before China swooped in, that's what they're seeing here. And they wanted to warn the CIA and FBI about it. But and guess what, William? That was like during Obama, and said they were quietly going across the border. So
if you look at how a lot of the Democratic Party, enjoys their cadres, a lot of them act as if they're communists. They have no need for the Constitution. So whether they are or not, we don't know, but for all intents and purposes, look at how they behave with regards to the Constitution and the amendments to the Bill of Rights. Jeez, it's sad.
I still can't find his name. I was hoping to find it. Run a quick search on it. AOC
was using some new.
Yeah, there's one guy.
People's Republic of Astoria, not the United States, or something the other day. Sounds awfully.
Batista, he was one. I don't think that's it. Anyway.
So you're thinking about Fidel Castro down south, and then brother Raul.
Bingo. That's
and
it.
And then now we have a new guy. I can't remember what his name is.
Canal, something like that.
Could be,
yeah.
But he's the one that's really getting infiltrated, just like Venezuela, just like Chile.
It was Castro. Yeah. So it was somebody that worked for Castro, and then his kids.
It was his military lieutenant.
Yes.
He was his direct military lieutenant, and he came over to the United States after he had to flee because, when you go from one new leader to another in a communist country, it doesn't mean that your lieutenants are going to get to live. You know what I mean? So someplace in that shuffle, they had to flee, and a better place to come. And they're willing to swear allegiance to the United States. Well, and they got something to offer.
Yeah. And see, that's all the way back into the 50s where, and we had to worry about communism with the Bay of Pigs and JFK. But the Chinese infiltration, they said, started back then. And so you could only imagine decades later of how many Chinese are here that are just waiting for D-Day, to come.
Yeah, I believe this lieutenant, he married an American woman too, was part of the reason.
I can't remember.
He wanted to come to the United States.
So,
Just she lived here. And, yeah.
so anyway, William, do you have any final words? And folks, we will not be here tomorrow, not because of our strike, it's because I have appointments all day, and so we'll be back on Friday. So, William, any last words on anything that's
Thank you
going
for
on
the
today?
opportunity to be here, and also I hope I haven't caused any problems for today.
No.
For the
Am I back, everybody? I am so sorry. We lost connection totally. Everything went down. But that is the show for today. I hope you guys can see. Um, no sound? Huh. Um, hopefully you guys can see me. I keep losing connection. I'm going to go ahead and close the show down. We will see you on Friday for um, trivia. So hopefully you guys could see this. Thanks and subscribe. And I'm not sure what the issue with our internet is, but even we lost William. He got disconnected on his side. So hopefully we didn't anger too many people. But we will see everyone on Friday and wish me luck with my appointments tomorrow. Have a wonderful Wednesday, and we'll see you guys on Friday.